Welcome to the Leaders Agenda, a series dedicated to reimagining leadership within life sciences. My name is Tarja Huuskonen, and I'm your host. The Leaders Agenda invites insights and perspectives from some of the very best leaders of our time, wisdom that you too can build into your own leaders' agenda. Our guest today is Ranjeet Banerjee. He is the CEO of Cold Chain Technologies. And Cold Chain Technologies is a global leader in thermal assurance packaging solutions for life sciences. They are a really, really important part of that life sciences value chain. But I also know that Ranjeet brings over 30 years of global experience as a senior leader within the life sciences business. He's worked in companies such as Becton Dickinson and Unilever prior to this. I asked Ranjeet how he would describe himself, and he said, perhaps an innovator, but an innovative collaborator may actually be the better term. So welcome, Ranjeet, to Leaders Agenda. I'm so glad to have you here today.
Raja, good to be with you.
Okay, so let's start with that innovative collaboration theme a little bit, since you are now in this Cold Chain Technologies organization, specifically looking at supply chain. What does innovation and collaboration, why does it matter in that space?
It's interesting that today there is the existence of technologies today that can actually solve huge problems that we probably could not like 10, 15 years ago. Those technologies exist, right? So really what is needed is for a group of purpose-driven organizations, companies, people to come together, understand what those big needs are, and then use technology to find really sustainable solutions, right? I'll give an example. A lot of people don't know this, but today, every year, the life sciences, which is, put it as pharmaceuticals, drugs, biologics, vaccines, the life science industry globally loses something like 40 to 50 billion dollars of drugs, vaccines, and biologics when in the last mile being from the plant of manufacture to the patient recipient. And this could happen because of poor conditions, temperature excursions, etc. So it's a huge amount of waste. And there's a patient safety implication as well. One is the monetary implication, but what if the drug biologic has become ineffective during transport and is still being administered? So again, this is a great example of how do we come together using technology to address this kind of waste and patient safety aspects and implications of this as well.
I am actually shocked at that number. You are absolutely right. I've never heard that number actually crystallized that clearly before. So you're saying 40 to 50 billion wasted that wouldn't have to be. In other words, we could prevent this today with today's technologies.
That is correct. Through partnerships, through using innovation, through more data interoperability, through using digital technologies. It's this, what we call the kind of the last mile, right, of creating value. You can develop the drug and the biologic. You can manufacture it under very good conditions, but if it's not brought to the patient or the recipient under the same conditions, that's a waste.
Yes.
Right? So there's that last mile in the life sciences value chain that we have to together address. And I do believe that technologies exist today that we can pull together a group of organizations, companies, etc., and really go after these kind of collaborative innovation, co-creation opportunities.
I love that. I'm going to come back to that a little bit later in our conversation. And I also want to tie into the entire innovation spectrum, because I think that this may be one of those things that we don't think about early enough when we are even just starting the development of some of our products, and we should. So before we go into all the other details, though, Cold Chain Technologies, Can you tell us a little more about your company and how big its global reach is? I know it's a global leader. Where do you spend your days? What do you do as your primary focus as a company?
So, Cochin Technologies, or CCT, was started in the 1960s in Massachusetts in the US. And the focus always has been to create thermal assurance solutions for, initially it was both the food and the life sciences industry, but over the last, I would say the last 10, 15 years or so, the focus has been more on life sciences.
Mm-hmm.
And specifically, these are drugs, biologics, cell and gene therapy products, large molecule formulations. And the reason I'm mentioning this is that if you look at where the pharmaceutical innovation is going,
Yes.
a lot of the innovation is going into these large molecule complex formulation that requires special handling and treatment. Right. So that's what Cochin Technologies does. We are a global company. We are still headquartered out of Franklin, Massachusetts, close to Boston, but we have locations now, many locations within the US, as well as we are in most of the regions outside the US as well, and growing pretty well outside the US as well.
And you have been with the company now for a few years, right?
Yeah, I've been with the company for more than 2 years. I joined at a very interesting time when COVID was taking off, and there was a lot of needs. And our company, CCT, was one of the leaders in supporting the Operation Warp Speed program in the US. So we were part and parcel of distributing these life-preserving vaccines, the COVID vaccines. We're still doing it, all the way from when the vaccines was first started rolling out. And it's been a lot of learning and a privilege for us as well to be a part of that exercise.
Um, that must have been quite the challenge, though, because I remember actually in the early part of COVID when there was a lot of conversation about will we get a vaccine fast enough? And I was being interviewed, and I said, I know that we have lots of vaccines in the pipeline. We will have vaccine, not just one, but we will have many. But the question is, will we know how to distribute it and get it to the patients globally? And I didn't think at that point that there was a very good global system to do that. What was your experience?
No, you're right, Tarja. You're absolutely right. I think the response, the scale, and the speed
Yeah.
that was needed for COVID actually kind of there was a good and a bad. The good was a lot of great organizations came together. Crisis brings people together, right?
Yes.
And a lot of great organizations came together and together solved the problem. The pharmaceutical companies, the government, distribution companies, even in the US at least, even the army came in and helped with the logistics.
That's right.
And so it was amazing. At the same time, the bad was it exposed the gaps and the things like the not having data transferability, not having the all the elements of how to respond to a pandemic of this scale.
Right.
And globally, it's even more complex. So I think it's very interesting because while you saw the good of how people come together and resolve it, you also saw, okay, what can we do better? And you should never let a crisis go without lessons learned. And I think it's time for us to step back and say, okay, how do we make sure this doesn't happen again? What can we do differently and better? And again, that goes back to my point of technologies exist.
Yeah.
If people with the will and the mission to do this come together, we can find solutions.
Yeah, and I'm hopeful that this time we do that after this crisis. I think the human nature tends to be that, we rise to the occasion, and we at that moment we say we will learn from this and we will take those learnings, but when the crisis kind of dissolves, we also lose our sense of urgency. And
True.
going back to that involvement, though, um, what was your point of entry into being a game player in the vaccine distribution specific to COVID? Because I know there's all kinds of different. Did you go through the drug companies, or were you called also from a larger scale to that role? How did that work?
No, it's a good question. So, Tarja, what the reason we got involved was we have been involved with vaccination programs before COVID, the general vaccination programs, and our company CCT partners on that. So, I think what we do really well
Mm-hmm.
as a company is, I would say, three or four things. One is our products are these products are complex. The thermal packaging for life sciences, it's a complex product because you have to have a very high level of assurance,
Mm-hmm.
right? The design, the choice of materials, how it all comes together has to be extremely well thought through and validated. So it looks simple on the surface, but it's very complex.
Yeah.
And I think that's where our company has, kind of through expertise, built that expertise over multiple years, and we were participating in that program. So when this happened, some of the partners we were working with, they brought us in,
Yes.
and we had the privilege of working with them for the COVID program. And I think the whole idea was to make sure that we rapidly scale up. The scale of this was kind of daunting. We set up a whole new operation in Tennessee just for this, and I think it was from groundbreaking to start of production was something like 95 to 100 days. Right, we had in all the automated lines and training of the people. It was unprecedented.
I was just going to say, that's quite an achievement.
Yeah,
That is a very short time to be able to do that.
it was. I mean, this is again. Sometimes crisis brings out the best in
Yes.
people and organizations. We got a tremendous amount of support from the local government organizations, from our partners. And that that's the good thing, and we were ready. We had the know-how. It was a question of scaling up to deliver on this, and I'm very proud of our team. They did a tremendous job, often working through the weekends, etc., and we got it done.
Well, congratulations for that, and also thank you for that, because we are all benefiting from that all throughout the world. So thank you so much for that effort, and the thought innovation that is ongoing. I have a very basic question, though, that I forgot to ask earlier. The word cold chain versus the word supply chain. If there's someone out there that doesn't quite know what the difference is, would you educate us?
Sure. So think of I kind of think of if the whole value chain of developing a drug to all the way to the person or recipient receiving the drug or a vaccine. Think of it end to end. It kind of, at the end of the day, there are kind of three big steps. There's the development of the drug and vaccine, which is critically important, and it takes a lot of time and effort. And we've got some great companies or organizations that are driving that. After that is the manufacturing, right? And again, typically, most of the time it's the same. Sometimes it's different, but there are good companies who are manufacturing that. The third is now, after it's manufactured, it's taking it across the last mile. I like calling it the last mile. The last mile is from plant to patient, right? All the way from the pharma manufacturer's plant, in this case, let's say COVID, it was Pfizer or Moderna or, distribution center, and then all the way to the recipient. And that part is very complex because as you can imagine, it's very fragmented. You have to have a lot of controls in place. And very importantly, you have to make sure that the things are being moved in the right conditions, you are tracking it. There's a whole digital overlay here. You're being able to track it, you're able to trace it, know where to go, and make sure that before it's injected into the body, there's been no excursions in temperature. Because if it has been, imagine you can't see anything. It's a colorless vaccine, right? Yeah. Imagine it gets entered into the body and it actually has experienced a significant temperature excursion. Then that recipient is actually not immunized.
That's right. Your efficacy goes way down very quickly, right?
So there's a patient safety aspect here. So that's why cold chain technologies, or cold chain, is that part of the last mile value chain that we kind of improve and innovate and support.
Okay, so I love, by the way, I love the word last mile. I think that says it all in many ways, and it also brings up the importance of that last mile. So does the first mile in this process use a development and manufacturing? Now we get to the last mile. If I'm on the first mile, even maybe before I get to full development, when I'm just thinking through my strategy, is it at that point that I should already start thinking about the last mile? I mean, when do you need to be involved if for you to be able to affect the best results in that last mile? When should I engage you if I'm a developer?
It's a great question again. I think if at the first mile there is an understanding that the last mile is going to be complex, right? When I say complex, meaning it requires very specific temperatures and even beyond temperatures, other conditions that have to be met. Then engaging with us early is very good. Mm-hmm. And I'll give a real example to bring this home. You probably have heard about this whole growth of cell and gene therapy, personalized medicine, etc.
Yes.
So these are absolutely life-saving drugs that are being discovered, and it's a growing field. Most of them require very low temperature transport. They require special conditions. Now, this is where having a strategy early on of how to take it across the last mile is going to be very helpful. On the other hand, if in the first mile, if you say, look, okay, this drug actually doesn't require all that careful handling, then you may not need to be engaging so early. Even if you come to us at a later stage, we can say, look, we already have a broad portfolio of products, and we can help you.
Yeah. So what you're really saying, if you need to tailor that last mile to a specific drug, or even in some cases, I would probably say conditions, and from a patient perspective or from a global perspective. So depending on where we're distributing and what those conditions are on a local level, that would probably make quite a difference in your business, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
The earlier on we can engage for, especially if the conditions are not normal. They are, it was interesting. If you, again, taking the COVID example just for a moment, the mRNA vaccines were often transported at minus 25, even minus 75, right? That's a pretty low temperature, right? So again, the higher the need for these kind of specialized conditions, not just temperature, and I love the word you use, condition. That is actually right, because it's more than temperature. The more advanced working is good. And that's kind of what we do. A lot of our customers, they come to us with a problem statement. And we then engage with them and say, okay, what's the problem you're trying to solve? Yeah. We already have a solution. If not, should we be designing a solution specific to meeting your requirements?
Okay, so since you just said they come to you with a problem or need, can you give an example of one of your biggest challenges or strangest requests you've ever received? Because I'm assuming that you've seen requests of all kinds. So give us a flavor of a challenging one.
I'll give a recent one, which, and I can think of a couple, but I'll give one which is very recent, and it'll kind of bring home this whole experience that we've all gone through recently with COVID. So one of our customers came to us saying that, COVID vaccines have to be transported and they have to be kept at a pretty low temperature. The problem they were having was not that the vaccine could go warmer. The problem they were having is one of called supercooling, where if it's not handled properly, the thing that's keeping it cold could go through a process which could take the temperature down even further. Now, it's very counterintuitive, right?
Yeah.
But this is where the reason I'm bringing this up is this is where you have to have design and technology and the know-how, the expertise to make sure that how do you create a set of conditions where you're maintaining the vaccine in a very narrow band. Lower is bad, higher is bad as well. So that was a very interesting experience where it was kind of counterintuitive. Oh, can it really get cooler? We're trying to make sure it doesn't get warm. But so our team typically works with our customers, understanding their needs, and then coming up with the solutions.
Yeah. So the mind share within your own organization and the people who are doing that innovation part of it, from a competency perspective, what are the critical competences that you really hone in on as you look at your overall capability within CCT?
So I think definitely engineering expertise, especially as it comes to thermal design and simulation expertise. Material sciences, we have people who have got deep knowledge in materials, insulation. Sustainability is becoming a very important topic for life science industry. How do you reduce the carbon footprint? So we've got expertise in our organization that can do life cycle analysis, find green, sustainable solutions, yet these are also high-performing solutions. Digital is another capability, being able to understand data, integrate data, convert data into insights, automate. That's becoming a capability. And then finally, we do most of our manufacturing ourselves. So high-speed automated manufacturing, globally, that's another capability of ours. Our customer-facing teams are technical. Most of our customer-facing teams would be able to have a technical conversation with our customers to understand their needs and then figure out what's the right solution for them.
So that leads me then to think about, so what's the difference if I wanted to build all this capability within my four walls? I'm a life sciences company, as opposed to partnering with a company like yours. I'm assuming that even if I partner with a company like yours, I will want to have some core base capability in-house, such that there is a really kind of a smooth partnering across that value chain, if you will. But what is the biggest advantage of thinking about outsourcing this last mile, instead of trying to build that capability in my own organization?
I think this last mile has always been, I would say, very complex, right? And it is, the complexity comes from the need for compliance to certain conditions, the need to deliver things at the right location, at the right price, at the right cost, at the right time, and in an accurate way. So the complexity comes from all these factors, and they are multiple entities that are involved, right? The companies like us that are providing one part of the service. There are other distribution companies who are providing the logistics. Like we don't get into like trucks and but then that's very complex as well. How do you move these things around, right? How do you warehouse them? How do you make sure? So there's a whole more kind of, I would say, a supply chain aspects that we don't get into. Ours is more product and digital solutions, but there's that aspect. And then it's everybody kind of coming together then to take care of this last mile. So to answer your question, that is a pretty big task for, let's say, even a large pharma company whose core capability is drug development and maybe drug manufacturing,
Yes.
right? Building all this capability in-house is not that easy. And that's why, because it's complex and there are several entities, that's why they'll come and they'll partner with us. But again, I'll go back to what, you had a great question at the beginning. I do believe that this partnership on the last mile can become very different today through use of technology, especially data.
So say more about that.
So the thing that I think we can do much better today is be able to share data across different entities in this life science value chain, end to end, right? From the point of manufacture to where the person is receiving and being using or being injected with the drug or getting the drug. So I think there's a whole opportunity here to use data for better monitoring where the product is, better to ensure better that there's always been very good compliance to the right conditions and reduction of waste, right? So being more proactive, right? Being more proactive as opposed to being reactive. I'll give a little example here to bring this to light. We're working on launching capabilities where, imagine, one is when let's say a vaccine or a drug is temperature sensitive drug is being transported. One is there's an excursion and we can say, oh yes, real time, we know there's been an excursion, right? And don't use it. The other is before the excursion happens, can you predict it?
Love that.
If you can predict it before it happens, then you can even look at, can you prevent it?
That's right.
Right? So, and the technologies today exist to do using AI, using machine learning, to be able to do these kind of things by looking at, okay, where is the product? What's the ambient conditions? What's the design of the packaging? Because we can create this kind of solutions which are more proactive as opposed to reactive to solve these problems.
I love that. Goes back then to that, maybe two things in my mind. And, please tell me if I'm wrong. But one thing, whenever we talk about data and being able to share data and use data in a different way, where it really turns into intelligence and informs our decisions, one question is, where does standardization come into that picture? So we have multiple players. How do we standardize data enough such that across the globe, multiple players are able to actually benefit from that data set? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think there are attempts being made to standardize it, make data more interoperable. There are also, I would say, new technologies that are emerging where you can actually live with different types of data. I mean, there are technologies out there today where the use and sharing of data has become a lot more easier. And another word I'll use is not just easy, secure as well.
Yes.
Like, I'll give an example, blockchain, right? Blockchain is a well-established technology that is there today where different entities can come and they can share their data towards a higher good, right? Or higher purpose, right? So I do believe that technologies, the core platform technologies exist today. And yes, there will always be need for further innovation and that happens. But I think I almost will say this, that the pace of technology innovation is faster than the pace of collaboration of like-minded people coming together and saying, we got to figure out a way to solve this because there are ways to solve it.
That's right. Well, so we have a business case for it right now because I'm hanging on to this 40 to 50 billion number that you brought up at the beginning. So would we not want to tackle that one across all of the different organizations that need to be part of it? I mean, think about what we could do if we had 40 to 50 billion dollars every year saved and put to some good use someplace else, right? I mean, this is incredible. So you've been in leadership roles in global organizations before this. Now you are in this very complex environment, and we're looking for like-minded people to come together. How do we do that, Ranjit? How can we
So
get them
we
to come together?
Yeah, I think, and this is an opportunity. I'm as I'm using this session also as a forum to invite people to collaborate with us. So we are right now, Ocean Technologies, our company CCT is looking to kind of what I call think big, start small, scale fast approach, where we are actually taking on this challenge, and we are talking to other stakeholders in the life sciences value chain, right? Pharma companies, distributors. I've even reached out to folks in the federal government who have experience, especially during COVID, of how do you manage this whole kind of the challenges that you saw in the value chain, right?
Yeah.
Because there are learnings here. So what we are trying to do is bring together a cohort of organizations, and with exactly that purpose of let's define what the future could look like, and then break that down into what I call kind of baby steps. Let's can't go after the churning the ocean here, but if we think big, but then okay, what is the first thing we want to achieve? So we are right now trying to form this coalition. I've got some companies already interested. I'm hoping to announce the coalition soon, maybe as early as end of this month, or by latest by mid-December. We're a group of companies coming together and taking steps towards this big problem. But each step then can build on the previous step. So that's going to be something we are very committed to doing. I think there's a lot of what I call creating good here for society beyond our own business objectives as well.
Absolutely. That's really exciting. And it actually addresses so many different things that we've already talked about in this very short time, including learning something from this crisis that exposed us to the gaps in collaboration, in structures and processes and practices. So I love the idea of that mind share that can bring, that can be created through a coalition like that. But I also think that what you're describing as creating a vision, a shared vision, that's so important because we tend to still be pretty siloed. We talk about these value chains, but in our daily operations and in our daily choices, we're pretty siloed. We still kind of work, and we work that way partly because so we have to be protective of our own businesses, and we have to be protective of IP. Do you feel, is there what's the biggest sort of a practical challenge that a coalition like that would really need to tackle together to be able to move forward with an agenda that's actionable?
I think the 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 practical challenge would be to make sure that there's a group of believers who come together,
Mm,
and B, give it some time, right? Give it
yes.
some time, because the the first is that you got to come together, you got to start understanding and say, okay, how do we go about this? And each of us who come together will have some ideas, some
Yeah.
thoughts, but I think there's a lot of power in that sausage making, if I may call it, initially. But then once we come up with something, it has to be converted into an actionable plan.
That's
And
right.
this is what I love. You think big, but you act small and
Yes.
scale fast. So what is that first step that we will take together? When I say give it some time, what happens in an organization, each company, people move around and there's somebody else. And so we have to stick with it
Yes.
for some time,
Yeah.
right? So it's a group of believers coming together, sticking with it, and saying, okay, we will see this through. We will see this through. I mean, if you look at, I'll give an example. If you look at just innovation within the four walls of an organization,
Mm-hmm.
good companies, when they innovate, they ring fence their big ideas and they don't let the day to day of the business impact their big ideas. They ring fence them,
Yes.
right? So, okay, I'll have day to day issues. I'll miss a quarter. I'll be great next quarter, but my core idea is getting innovated on, right? How do you do that in a collaborative effort? It becomes 4x harder but that's where you have to have this purpose-driven companies come together, stick together, and say, we're going to do this thing. It's possible. If one organization can't do it, but us coming together can figure this out.
Yeah, and I think, to your point, this really is about a greater good, something that's bigger than any one organization could ever achieve on its own. It's really, but it's also advancing the thinking. It's
Yes,
advancing to the next level of being able to take all of these different things that, if pulled together, can actually accumulate to something much bigger than what we could even imagine perhaps by ourselves.
exactly. This is truly value chain innovation, right?
Yes.
This is value chain
Yeah.
innovation as opposed to a single entity innovating within its four walls, which is also very important.
Yeah.
It's an and also, right? You have to innovate within your four walls, but how do you innovate across the value chain?
Absolutely. So one topic, perhaps tied to that coalition agenda, perhaps not, in as a single one, but I would imagine is an important one today, is the topic of sustainability. And that's, talk about greater good. Here we talk about greater good as in the earth being really the focus around sustainability. Um, and I know that you have actually taken many leadership steps in that area, you and your company. And in fact, I believe I just saw you were there was an award that you received.
Yes.
What was the award about?
So we received a award on sustainability for so what we've been working on is as in the industry space we occupy or we work in, which is thermal assurance packaging for life sciences. How do we come up with solutions that are much more sustainable, climate friendly, yet they're also high performance and cost effective, right? You got to balance all this, right? Because if you come up with a solution that is sustainable, that is 4 times the cost, it's
Yeah.
not going to fly, right? So what we did was at CCT, we said sustainability is not another strategy. It's core to what we have to deliver, right? And we started focusing on reusable solutions, and we have a very successful reusable product line. And we engineered it, designed it. We have a whole infrastructure that supports our reusable product line. And that was, by the way, the kind of the workhorse for the COVID vaccine, also, right? We also now have a technology where we have curbside recyclable single-use products as well. Sometimes you can't have a reusable solution. You need something that you can throw away, but that does not go to landfill.
Yeah. Right.
It's recyclable, repurposable. You can convert it back. So and we are expanding our portfolio, and we have also taken a goal of reducing landfill by 60 million pounds by 2025. And we are actually tracking against it. We have taken the goal of 50 million pounds, and now with progress, we actually increased our goal to 60 million pounds of landfill avoidance by 2025 through our products and solutions.
Excellent, excellent. And so, this is a big topic across all industries. It certainly is finding its way to the life sciences industry in many different ways, and just about any company has some kind of a program around sustainability now. But you said this, we need to look at that triangle. I think you said sustainability, performance, and cost effectiveness, right?
Yes.
So, from a customer perspective, do you find that customers care about this? I mean, do you have conversations around sustainability with your customers, or are most of the conversations first about either the cost effectiveness or the performance, and then I mean, is there a priority order from your customers' perspective around this?
No, it's a really good question. I really feel that our customers are becoming much more knowledgeable, and they want sustainable solutions. They truly want sustainable solutions. They will never compromise, and they should not compromise performance, right? Because these are
Yes.
life-saving drugs, vaccines, and medications. But I will say our customers are taking sustainability very seriously. And we are seeing a lot of growth in our innovation pipeline and our product pipeline as it comes to sustainability. And we are working very closely with quite a few customers to see, can we switch in a meaningful way? Can we switch from kind of more fossil fuel based materials to more sustainable materials or sustainable solutions?
All right. So
We're doing that.
a lot of that is in the material side, but I actually saw a quote from you, and I'm gonna read it. Just a few days ago, and you were saying focusing on sustainability is not a sprint, not even a marathon. It must become part of the culture. Ranjeet, that statement really resonated with me, and it has so many levels of meaning. What does that statement mean to you, and what you are doing within your own company?
So, the statement, what it means is that if you think of a sprint or a marathon, it's an event,
Yes.
right? A marathon's a longer event, but it's an event.
Mm-hmm.
This is this has to become a part of your DNA. It's like breathing, right? You have to make it a part of the culture of the organization.
Yes.
And you have to start thinking of just very simple, for for-profit organizations, how do you tie something like sustainability to your business growth strategies, right? So if you can do that, it becomes, even sustainability becomes sustainable, right? You can then invest more, right, into sustainability. But it's the mindset of creating this shared value, is how do we do good for society and at the same time do good for our business, right? Because it's connected, right? We can't be separated from the environment, the society we live in. So I think that to me is key. The way we are approaching this within CCT is, it's the simple things are as important, whether, what kind of, are you using thermoform, cups, or are you using real, sustainable things for simple things too, all the way to, can you come up with completely new materials and technologies that can dramatically reduce the carbon footprint, reduce landfill. If we have built life cycle analysis capabilities within CCT, we do the comparisons ourselves. So that's the part of the culture. Every little thing is important as you pull this together.
Yeah, and of course, you know that I am from Finland, and we are a very small country. 1/3 of our country is above the Arctic Circle. Circular economy, all of these things are a very big thing for us. our environment does not renew itself as fast as perhaps some other environments. So it has always been a core value for us. And of course, we have a lot of innovation in this area ourselves. But do you believe that we are on track to saving the earth, so to speak? You watch the news and you oftentimes see, of course, the bad headlines, but you also see good news, things that are, we are making progress. Do you feel that we have made progress in the last 5 years, say, and are you hopeful about a different future?
I am. I think I'm by nature a glass half full guy. So I actually sincerely believe we have made progress. I think there's a lot more awareness. If you look at the next generation,
Yeah.
they are, they're so conscious about this. I think they are almost demanding this from our generation. If you look at the future.
Yeah.
So, but having said all that, I think we have to go faster.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have to go faster. This is real, and we have to go faster, and we have to be committed.
Yeah. And I love actually also what you said there is that, we should not ignore the little things, the daily things.
Yeah.
And walking into the room and looking around and saying, where's the opportunity right here, right in this room? Now I'm going to look around in the studio, but because those are real, those all add up, and that's what we're really talking about. And then there's the big things and the big innovations.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see what comes out of your coalition, and good luck with pulling that together. And perhaps I will have you come back and give us a report once you've had a little bit of time with that coalition. I want to switch gears just for a little bit now, and we've talked a lot about these very significant trends and complexities that are part of what you do from a professional perspective and deal with every day. This is called the Leaders Agenda. That's the name of the show. So I'm curious about how you yourself, as a senior leader, how do you build your own leaders agenda?
So I think some of the things I've tried to do is, be in a mode where you're constantly learning. You have to be you have to be very, it's like being like a sponge, being able to absorb a lot and then kind of connect the dots and kind of make meaning out of it. It's not just, absorb a lot and then do nothing, but how you kind of, so leaders today have to be very open. They have to be, they have to be extremely open, almost kind of think outward in. And it's easy when companies grow, it's easy to become centered within your organization. It's very easy because these are, as companies grow, they become very kind of self-centered, especially for leadership. It's not that hard.
Yeah.
So how do you make sure you're always looking outside in is one. I think the second thing is empathy. For leaders, you have to have, it's yes, work is important, but how do you take care of people, values, integrity? I think that is a big part of learning from others. But I try to make sure that is a big part of my leadership agenda, how I interact with. The other thing is, in my mind, they're kind of especially for a company, for the CEOs and the leadership team, there are two tracks that I say are kind of, these two tracks are important to keep in mind. The one track is our customers, right? And customers never lie. If you are always, and think of it as beyond customers as stakeholders. They may not be, maybe you're not directly transacting with them as you are with customers, but what do stakeholders, what are they thinking? What are they thinking about you, about the industry? What are their problems? And I think understanding those. And then how do you also keep a pulse of your organization, right? How do you connect with not just your direct reports, but for a leader to get a pulse of the organization directly. What are, organizations have to, there's always something that is going well and something that's not going well. How do you find out what's not going well? So those are the things that I try to build, this ability to learn, look outside in, connect that to our innovation agenda, keep a pulse on our stakeholders, our internal organization, and connect that back to the values.
Yeah. So it's interesting to sort of listen to you in that, because on one hand, what you're describing is really the need to sort of think about how you commit yourself on a daily basis, where you spend your time, where you put your energy, and really understanding what those few critical areas are that need to have a balance of attention and a balance of your own sort of understanding of it in a different way. So if I were to ask you to draw me a pie chart of your typical week, and where your time is spent between sort of your customer engagements, really understanding, and whatever learning and relationship building goes along with that piece, and then the internal part, as well as then some of the larger trends that you have to be translating to meaning for your organization. What's the percentage of time that I might see on your calendar?
So I think, just approximately, I would say I try to spend maybe 20 to 25% of my time on innovation and really understanding what are the things that we are working on today from innovation perspective, what where we need to take the company. And there's time I spend, it's hard to quantify that, but I would say at least another 10-15% of my time trying to reach out to our stakeholders, our customers and other stakeholders, and trying to understand what they're doing. I do also spend, I would say, another probably 25 to 30% of my time on our internal processes, right? That you these are the processes you need to run the company. And what I do is, if there's a problem, I'll go deep. If there's no problem, we've got a great team, so I'll step back. So it's a question of when you zoom in, when you zoom out.
Yeah.
But telescope in. So if but just for a leader to just have a pulse on what's going on in the organization, and then the last bit of time is just talking to people within the organization, right? And one of the things that I've learned is it's not just about talking to your direct reports. Especially when you're senior in the organization, you have to go to the pulse of the organization. You have to go to the shop floor. You have to go to people who are doing, materials handlers, and then they're just connecting with the broader organization is very important for leaders.
And that's also part of the culture building, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And creating that transparency and ease of communication. And probably, I guess the big word out there, of course, these days is psychological safety. Being able to really promote that openness where anyone can bring up issues. You were saying, okay, you really want to make sure that, for instance, your internal processes, they are working well. Well, how do you know unless people are able to speak up, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So have there been some big turning points in your career, from just a leadership perspective, where you said, oh, this was a big aha for me, and that has affected who you are as a leader?
I think there's been obviously we're constantly learning, and there are a few. I think I still remember one interesting opportunity we had was I was with a medical device company at that time, and we were making auto-disabled syringes for vaccination in Africa. And I still remember we had a partner, one of the, you know, nonprofit organizations. They came to us and they said, "Can you give us more product for vaccination?" And I said, "Why do you need more product?" And they said, "Because we have some of these problems that we can't get to them on the time and all that." So I said, is there a way where we can, instead of giving you product, we can give you product, but can a group of our team members come and just observe what's going on and work with you to find a solution? And I think it was very interesting because they jumped on it. And we actually had I'll never forget this. We went to, you won't believe it, we went to Zambia in Africa. We got a whole group of people together to understand what ails vaccination programs in Africa. And we learned a ton. So I guess the message here, for the reason I brought this up, is sometimes you got to, the real need doesn't come out. It just doesn't. Sometimes the real need is different. Yeah. You got to dig in and scratch the surface to understand what is the real problem here that we want to solve. And it's not the one that is often verbalized.
Yeah, that's an excellent thing to keep in mind in everything that we do, pretty much. Since you mentioned going to Africa and kind of learning what's different over there, is there anything that you would want to say to other people who are working in global environments as to sort of, what you have to keep in mind specifically if you're working globally?
I think definitely one is the cultural nuances. That's an obvious one. But beyond that, I think for leaders today, this whole concept of creating shared value, which is how do we do something that is good for society, but is also good for the business. I think that is becoming really important. Mm-hmm. Truly, and there's a feel-good part of it as well. But beyond feel-good, from a business practical perspective, I'll tell you why that is important. If today's environment, you want to attract talent, people want to work with a company that has got a mission as a purpose. They won't go to brand, 20 years ago, they would say, okay, that's a big name, let me go and work there. Yeah. That has become a lot less. They want to go and work for a company that is doing really good stuff, right? Then creating an engaged set of associates within the company it's very powerful when you can create shared value. You can say, look, we are growing as a company, but while we are growing as a company globally, we're also doing positive things for society. Yeah. That's so engaging, and so it brings everybody together, right? So that's something I would ask all leaders to be very conscious of, is what's the broader purpose here?
Yeah. Yeah. What's the broader purpose? And then what I heard you also say is, how does that broader purpose translate to what we do on a daily basis? And we may be global, but we see it locally, right? So that associate working in the company or a customer looking in, they're going to see it at that very local level. So somehow we have to align those.
And if you can convert that into a virtuous circle, like you see the broader purpose, you connected what you do that by connecting what you do some really good work, you're contributing back to society. I think this could be a virtuous circle that creates value for the organization as well as society. And it creates people, it brings in talent, retains talent, creates a lot of engagement.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so we are coming to the end of our time today, but I have actually two questions on a personal level for you, and we talked a little bit about the advice that you would give for a global company, but for yourself, I have to ask this because we've talked so much about stepping outside of what is today and doing something new, something that may actually advance thinking way beyond your own organization. That takes courage. So what does courage mean to you as a leader?
I think it's about courage is to be able to create a vision, but then be able to at least start attaining that vision, create a line of sight to all the benefits that that vision can can do or can deliver, right? It's easy to create a vision, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
easy, and the tough part is the creating that environment, the coalition, the energy, the the steps that are needed to make that vision into a reality. I think that's the piece which I think, I personally, people I admire are people who can do both very well,
Yeah.
can create that vision, create the alignment, and then deliver on that vision.
Yeah.
Right? They can deliver on that vision. So that to me is courage.
Now you think big. I can see that. Which then also means that this translation process of those steps that we can take. But as we take those steps, sometimes things don't work quite the way that we thought. So does that hinder our ability to think big? That vulnerability of
Yeah.
failure, if you will?
And this is where I think to think through is how much of passion you have in that vision, and
Yeah.
how much of belief you have, and it's there absolutely will be missteps, and there will be bumps along the way.
Mm-hmm.
There have to be. And it's a question of, that's where the courage, the resilience comes in, and say, look, can you get up and go down the path again?
Yeah.
And how do you do that? And to me, that's also a part of, that's becoming more important today in leadership today. That how do you get to that vision, as opposed to just creating the vision, and then it's just another vision.
Yeah, yeah. And I think this learning as we go along, I keep saying that you can't have innovation without failure. True big innovation. You can
Yeah,
have incremental innovation in a very safe way often, but that doesn't
yeah,
necessarily get you where you could be if you
right.
were willing to actually take the chance of failure at times and understand that that's the way we learn. But we got to know how to learn from it. That's the
Yeah,
trick, right? So and not stop. To your point, I think you said earlier, we need persistence. We need to
yeah.
continue, right? Okay, so with that in mind, the last question, we come into the end of the year. Looking into your next year, what's your one wish?
And it doesn't have to be work related, right? It can be
No,
any
it can
wish.
be anything at all. One wish.
I think the one wish I have is, when I look across what's happening in most countries around the world, the U.S. here, other parts of the world, I think the one wish I have is, how do we figure out, as a society, to find common ground?
Mm.
And I think we have to, in the world we live in today, there is, you can very quickly, transmit your thoughts. You can, social media and all that. Just a tremendous explosion of content hitting from all over the place, and often people, they react very differently to different things, and you see that that is happening an impact on society today. Look, society has become more divided. It has,
Yes.
and that's and I think my hope is that we have to figure out to more, how do we find common ground? We could all have different points of view, but how do we find that common ground, whether it is within an organization, whether it's in society, whether it is different parties, political parties? I think that is it's almost becoming critical as we look forward, for us to be a stable society. Because I think if not, my worries will keep getting very divided. So that's my one wish for next year.
I love that wish, and I hope that that wish comes true. It's a beautiful wish, and I know that you will do your part making that wish come true. Thank you so much for joining today, Ranjeet. And hopefully we will speak soon again. Especially, I want to hear the news on the coalition and some of the next things that you will be going after. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarja. It was wonderful chatting with you, and I would happy to be back. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed today's conversation. Check out leadersagenda.com for information on our past and future episodes. And I do hope that you engage with us also on LinkedIn, Twitter, or Facebook, and post your comments about what you heard today and your ideas forward. Kiitos. Thank you.